Good morning everybody and welcome back to another video where today we are taking a look at this monstrosity. This is my Great Sky Island custom build with Demon Dragon Edition. We're building two models together here, both from Wave 8 of the Custom Set Showcase. Some of you may be familiar with this part of GSI, which is the original part that we've had instructions for a couple of years. And then some of you may be familiar with Mr. Demon Dragon when we revealed his IRL build on the channel last year. But since then, he has been looking for a stand, and that gave me sort of the kick I needed to bring the rest of GSI over to join this and to sort of have this set up. So I'm going to walk you through it today because it's particularly interesting. I mean, particularly the story behind it goes that with the Temple of Time, I was waiting for that curved element from Monkey Kit to come in order to sort of have the accurate curves that I wanted on the Temple of Time. However, that piece never came in that color, so eventually I caved and just used a plate construct. But yeah, it's an interesting because it's a play scale model. Some of you remember 0074. I really like it because it's cheapified, but obviously when you have it in real life, you notice a couple of things. Now, obviously, this excludes the Demon Dragon, the noticeable Demon Dragon on the stand, and of course some other aspects. But yeah, floating islands like this, boy, are they need to be stable. I mean, we're pretty good. I mean, I don't love the wobbling that we're getting there. However, this one in particular is really rigid. I'm scared to touch it with Demon Dragon on there because very much I've turned the playset into display, because one of the problems we had, the reason that GSI left the convention circuit, was that apart from just looking cool, it didn't really offer much to a convention display. Now, that's not to say I didn't like it. I loved having this on the shelf. There's a reason that I fast-tracked this left section, because I thought it was really well put together, and I really love the visual look at it. I would love to have a Hyrule one day. Of course, we have our archaic tunic over here as well. But the reason I never did the other sections is, well, obviously this was beautiful for myself, but one, there was that part that was missing, and two, it was more expensive, and then obviously three, it just wasn't bringing that much option to convention. But when I decided, of course, that Demon Dragon needed a stand, because there was no way I was taking Demon Dragon to a show, because he hasn't actually been to a show yet, until Reading in April. I don't know when you guys are seeing this video, without him being sort of elevated, because on the floor he looks rather sad. And ironically, we're actually going to have to change the Colgara stand because they're both in kind of the same position, which is a little bit awkward. And this provided a great opportunity to have a nice, beautiful displayed foreground that was very different, had a nice striking orange, and that made great use of this sort of pseudo scale, where everything down here is designed to be sort of play, so that you can have your figures and pose them around, right? Like the Room of Awakening here is very much scaled for figures. This area is scaled for figures as well, and then of course this island is very much figure scale as well. However, the Temple of Time has been shrunken into sort of a cheapified version of it, which looks really great. And I should mention, of course, that we do have the ceiling platform round there, which unfortunately won't be a big part of this display. Another aspect of this squash scale is actually on the top here, where we have the water streams for where you have the construct who gives you the wind mission quest thing. Anyway, it's sort of a cheapified sort of micro scale, almost recreation of that top area, just because it simplifies it down. But I quite like that pop of blue, and actually the inversion technique I used to get the shaping here actually left me with these things that look like perfect fountains, which I thought was really great. There's of course no inside to the temple. It is hollow straight through. You can actually use that to see straight through to the other side. Up in the middle is just a solid core, and this thing is surprisingly stable. It's built upside down and then attached, right? But it is only attached by 4, which is potentially another thing that maybe wouldn't fly if this was a playset. Of course, though, the main star of the show here is Demon Dragon. Now, if you want to learn more specifically about Demon Dragon, I'll just link the video on that as well. But obviously, for those of you that don't know, we have a sort of opposable jaw. We've got these wonderful horns set up, which I think looks so accurate, these two stickered eyes. He's actually got a ball launcher. This is not a Zamosphere one. This is from the Dragon's Rising sets underneath. And the goal of this, of course, was being able to flick it. So it could be like he was shooting his fireballs, even though it's in the wrong color. We've got the neck, and then we've got these body segments here, which have the eyes on them, and then down to the tail as well. These two in the middle, are we going to try this? I think we're going to try it. I actually have removable sections. I've got to remember where to grab it from. I actually sort of upped the attachment points on this just to make it more stable, but it has these spots in here where you can actually pose a figure. So for example, we would take a villain usually, but we can put Ganondorf inside so that it actually looks like he's sort of being sealed. And then this does fit on top, obviously. This is the wrong figure with the sword, but yeah, you've got the malice eyes and so on, so it actually can look like it's done its Secret Stone transformation. Similarly, I've left a spot up there so that if I ever do a molded Secret Stone, or if they release a part that looks right, you can actually store one on there. And this 1x1 tile here on the nose is deliberately a 1x1 tile. Underneath there is a nice spot for you to pose a minifigure poser, so that you could actually have it laying backwards on the forehead as well. That's not quite it for features though as well. As one of the big benefits I found to that stud, and this wasn't included in the original set, was with this blood moon here. So at the moment I have it attached on the island. I need to think I want to raise it up more, maybe put it somewhere there. But I did actually work out in my previous display that I could wedge it in Demon Dragon's secret stone hole. Try not to put too much pressure, and then sort of have it like the moon was in the sky. Although it does kind of, the slight angling there does make it kind of look wrong, like it's coming out of the head, which is unfortunate, but yeah, so be it. And yeah, so that just adds sort of more dynamism to the scene because it does go blood moon at the end of that phase. I still want to get some more of those newer grey clouds that are coming on the Yoda's hut and have them sticking out the side as well, just to make this look more natural. Because the unfortunate thing with this blood moon circle is that it has a massive hole in the middle because it was designed for Ninjago. But once again, the Ninjago wolf warriors really were a blessing for custom Zelda builds in some ends. But yeah, so this is how it's turned into a display stand for Demon Dragon. We're gonna kick Demon Dragon out of here because quite frankly, it is the cooler part of this build, but right now I want to focus on GSI. So get your appreciation in for my large scary dragon. But yeah, let's rip him off his display stand. He's not going to come off easily yet. Of course, he's going to take all the mess with him. Okay, wonderful. Okay, and with him out of the way, we can take a closer look at the 3 islands. Now, at the moment I've had this one separated, but when I do the merch show, I'm going to keep them fused together. I'm about to take these apart for transport though, so it doesn't matter right now. And then of course, these are the 2 new ones. So we've got the cooking island over here with the bench where one day Hyrule will sit facing off, and then around the back. And this was actually a really easy conversion to do to turn it into a stand, because effectively the original playset model will just look like this, and didn't have these sort of weird appendages on it. And beyond that, it just sort of allowed. Let me unpop these. We have this wonderful vine piece, which is supposed to be like the rails going between them. It also keeps the islands in a good position. But of course, right now it's getting in my way. Hello. So we do still have a couple of upgrades and stuff to make. So for example, there really should be more than just the 4 studs holding this all in place on the side here. It's just something I haven't got around to yet. You know, you think about these compromises when you're designing stuff, but then like you never actually think, oh wow, I'm gonna one day have the true joy of having these in real life. So you don't think about stuff like this. This does look, oh my goodness, again off the side. But yeah, as I was saying, yeah, I just didn't think about it, and the fact that I needed to be able to put weight on this. So yeah, we'll be changing that there. Obviously hollow is lighter, and you can see that everything is raised up on these window shield pieces, which I actually got this idea from the Minecraft Sky Castle from 2020, which was another set that was raised up. We did it originally over on this model here, and then of course it's now here over on this one too. So this is the sort of pillar expert over here. This is incredibly over-engineered for what it was. Originally the idea was so that we could have sort of different rock segments clipped on here. So in fact I may still do that, so that we have the low one down, because this segment of the game you sort of run along and then you have to drop down and then ascend up through this one. But so I use these transparent rods and it actually attaches the 2 together, but you know, it's just not that serious, and I kind of figured that it's not really very necessary. So we may do some changes to that in the future, but for now it looks good. It has that nice sort of strength to it. This is semi easy to pick up. Oh, there goes another section of rocks. I mean, maybe this is actually accurate because well, when you're in the game, of course, they're falling down from the skies all above. So let's just call it a play feature and move on, because this kind of stuff doesn't happen when I'm moving the models around. But yeah, you get plenty of space over at this end table so that you can recreate the scene, obviously, where we hand off the Master Sword. So let me put Link here, and you can hold it up. Looks great. And yeah, it's nice to have that extra bit of depth, and it sort of adds an extra dimension to the playset and sort of allows you to move it around. But yeah, this is the central section. Otherwise than that, it's quite simple. We could always have a construct or so on one day if I get my act together. But I think I always liked about this playset is how cohesive it felt, how many different sort of options to sort of interact with the environments were, despite there being no outright play features. And by outright play features, I mean sort of things that explode. It was all in the character work, and as a location, it was one of the most successful custom sets, but also something that really captured that in a very Lego style. And I still think that this is probably in the top 10 most Lego-like of customs I've done, even with serious flaws such as stability here. Now, over on the other island, this is the Room of Awakening style island. So you've got the lily pad pools, which you would fall into above, but we've also mixed and merged that in with the room where Link wakes up. So again, let me grab our robes figure, and you can see there's just enough place for him to sort of sit in there. Now my version of this isn't quite finished yet. As you can notice, I've got a couple more holes around. I'm still waiting to place a Bricklink order where I can order more of these elephant trunks in tan, which unfortunately are an older piece now, but they are just so good I couldn't not include them. So I'm going to have a couple more of those to sort of make this more tree-like. I'll show you the render to see what it's going to be like as well at the end. And then past, of course, the pond, which is done in this beautiful dark azure, same as the water at the top. We've got the lily pad, one of which is in bloom. Around around the curves, and then we've got these steps down, which is where the vine attaches to. And that vine really does add so much. And of course, it is another thing that sort of Link could try and like wrestle his way along. You could use the sword to sort of hang him over, or you could prepare a hook contraption like you do in the game. And this one's actually raised up even higher, so it just adds to that slight visual height. But because this one's on a really solid base, it doesn't matter that it's an extra 2 bricks up in the air. And you've got more of those clouds, which is a really wonderful technique down on the bottom as well. If anything, the only thing I regret is actually putting this on a 16 by 16 plate, just because they're not the easiest to get hold of and they're kind of expensive. So again, I may change that out for smaller pieces just to make people's lives easier. But yeah, it's a collection of 3 islands. I think it looks absolutely wonderful. It was a joy to be able to bring these together because of Demon Dragon specifically. But before we go, I want to take a look specifically at some feedback I got, because I actually had the joy of being able to share this model with an ex-LEGO designer at one point and get some feedback on the design choices that we made, and as well as discuss some of the flaws that came up. So let's pop over digitally and take a look at that list for a second. Well, this is embarrassing. I've had these notes since 2024 and I haven't done anything with them, so apologies there. So for Great Sky Island, he said, first impression is that this looks beautiful. The blocky edges are really well done. The whole main build being upside down is a little bit spicy, but there's not too much tube side exposed, so I think it just about works. I would make sure to design it so that you can build its studs up and then flip it upside down when placing it on the base. The little vine cave also looks awesome and just screams Zelda to me. The zipline connection to the island is a good touch too. I love the idea of an Ultron toolbox, but I suspect that the modern LEGO group wouldn't be interested in something like this since it isn't a display piece, which is a shame. And that last section is in reference to the fact that I mentioned the Ultron Creativity toolbox was connectable with this set, as you have seen me do with Colgera, where I've had the wing flying around, and the idea was that you could bring in different constructs to help you move across the place. I will be displaying this build with Colgera, so unfortunately there won't be a wing on this model, but I may place the Tears of the Kingdom car around the base, although that might break the sky illusion. But yeah, so just a side aside there. But so far everything's looking good. I mean, we were just talking about how I agree that the temple is definitely a little bit spicy, but upside down. That it is built studs up, then turned over and attached before final details going on. So definitely watch as the pressure there. But it's well worth the effect, and I think he said, as he said, it's just about viable. Although I will admit it's definitely a little bit risky, knowing now what I do about LEGO quality control. And as for improvements, I'd like to see 1 or 2 functions, like from the other set that you showed me. Like, could the cooking pot jiggle, or have a launch function for Link to get him into the air? I realise that quite like structures being held up, but the windscreens used on the base don't quite sell the illusion of floating, and the cloud parts are not too convincing either. I would look at the Avatar sets and how they do floating structures, as well as the Pharrell Williams rocket for how to do clouds. Like, you could have more vines etc. from poking out from the bottom, and they happen to make contact with the ground, and I think they will still sell the idea that the set is floating. Okay, so for that section there, yeah, it's interesting that they bring up those sets for the floating ideas, because the Avatar sets were some of the earlier inspirations for trying to get stuff in the air. I mean, specifically, if you look elsewhere in this wave, the Avatar specs I cite specifically is inspiration for Z70, the Azura's Domain Mux Rock Menace. And while I agree that the effect isn't perfect, I don't know how I feel about having actual vine problems collecting to the ground, but maybe the effect isn't quite as strong as I thought, so let me know what you guys think down below. Of course, getting these models stable and up to play standards would have been tricky. The last section he had to say was all about the flux construct, which I realise we don't have today, but maybe one day I'd be able to recreate that mold as well. So let's hear what he had to say. The flux construct is really clever, and that would be a hot new element, but as a figure it would be played with by a child in their hands, so you would need it to be extra sturdy, especially at the joints. So you'd look to have those connected with Technic pins, or even rigidly locked together with plates or something. Okay, so referring to the idea that our flux construct build was designed too weakly to be displayed with, and yes, and again, in my time with the Minoru constructs, but also just learning more about the LEGO system, I can clearly see that this model would not stand up for play. A child would put it in their hands and it would crumble so easily. So ideally, unfortunately, yes, this would have to involve probably mix or ball joints of some kind. Now, the unfortunate thing is, as soon as you do that, well, it breaks the system, because then you can't attach the flux cube together into its other different forms. So the only real way to do it is to modify the basis and then have a pin and ball connection that's the socket form. Like, we already have the ball version, so we get the socket version and then you have to slide those into each other. Either way, the parts count goes high and it goes up. So I think basically what we're learning here is that if we wanted a flux construct in its current form, it would either have to be its own fully built and lose the transforming ability, or it would certainly just not be included in the LEGO set. So I think we're fine to not have it for now, even if it does mean that the islands are a little bit empty. I would personally love to get a steward construct in here and Rara, although I think I've mentioned that 4 or 5 times. Anyway, with those notes, I'm curious to see what you guys think of this model, specifically the Great Skyline thing. Obviously, we've talked about Demon Dragon before. These two are some of my favorite of the models that we created in the Wave 8 of the Custom Set Showcase. And I know I say this every time, but it is surreal to me that we now have them in the collection. They, of course, join a very prestigious lineup of builds that is obviously very steadily growing. But in addition to this, we also, of course, have Look at Landing and Secret Cave Discovery, parts of Ultra and Creativity Toolbox, Colgera, the other 3 bosses, a Demon Dragon, obviously, which we've just taken a look at today, and also the Mineral Constructs and Sonya Gazebo, meaning that I think at this point, effectively half of Wave 8 has made it into set form, even if some of those sets are only partial, like the bosses don't have their dungeons with them. However, there is still one more big one from this wave that I want to do, and I'm not just talking about stuff like the Koga car. Of course, I want to do the Koga car and some of the other creature builds like the King Gleeok. I'm just waiting on one part for that. But I'm talking about one more big build, and once again, it is sky focused. I would love to do my Storm My Dark to redevelop the Colgera display, and I feel that that might be up for beginning of 2027 for the next big show season. Now, there will still be some more show appearances where you might get to see this model or potentially some of the other ones coming up throughout the rest of the year, so watch out on the community tab for them, as well as future instruction updates. And of course, if I do go ahead with the Storm and Dark, well, this channel is the best place to know if that is going to happen. Although I'd say give me 8 months for that. We've got some other stuff in between. But thank you so much for having a watch and coming on by, and let me know your thoughts on Demon Dragon, GSI down below. What would you change? What do you think works? Does this playset still hold up 3 years later? Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.